As many people know by now, Mike Lindell had his phone seized by the FBI, right? Well, as it turns out, there are some dominoes falling right now because one of Mike Lindell's close associates, this guy on screen right here, Doug Frank, he had his phone seized by the FBI 2 days later, or a day later, after Lindell had his phone seized by the FBI. What is going on right now? And who is this Doug Frank guy? Dominoes are falling right now. The FBI is investigating Lindell and everybody surrounding him. So let's talk about who Doug Frank is, why the FBI would even care about Lindell's phone or Doug Frank's phone. Mid-September 2021, Lindell goes out on Jim Bakker's show, televangelist Jim Bakker, to lay out this whole election conspiracy theory that he had, okay? Let's listen to him explain the conspiracy theory, and then we'll talk about how Doug Frank works into the equation and why the FBI would care about his phone.
The night of the election, the algorithms that were set with the 2010 census is what they used. By 11 o'clock at night, when the machines realized, and they realized Donald Trump was going to win anyway, because of everybody voting for him. They did not expect this. I mean, that was the Lord there. This is all God's timing, by the way. Now, you look at when that happened, they had to stop everything in the middle of the night, and then we've seen all these deviations that didn't make sense. You had all...
Okay, no to all of this. This is a little convoluted because Mike Lindell talks like 100 miles a minute, but the idea that he just laid out for us is he believes that voting machines, which are basically just like Scantron machines, you know? Remember taking state tests in school and you'd bubble in the little letters and then you know, your teacher would slide them into this Scantron machine and it would pull the thing through the Scantron, it would read the bubbles that you circled in, and it would spit out results that you got on the test. That's basically what these voting machines were, for the most part. There's a little bit more to it, but that's basically it. They're just Scantron machines. So they're just like reading these results. Mike Lindell claims that these voting machines actually weight results in people's favor and added extra voters to the rolls and all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, this was the linchpin of the conspiracy. He believes that the voting machines were operating not off of regular voter registration or voter rolls, but they were operating off the 2010 census, which is nonsense for a million reasons. The census didn't have the voter registration data that is required to register to vote in the first place. The census has children on there. You can follow your vote. You can track your vote in most states and watch it, you know, get turned in to the Secretary of State or whatever else and see when it's been counted and who it was for and all that other stuff. Like, everything about this is nonsense from beginning to end and tells me that the guy really doesn't understand anything about how election systems work. And not just that, but he doesn't even understand how, like, computers work on a fundamental basic level, right? But here's where it gets interesting. I hear you asking, where did all this come from? Let me introduce you to Doug Frank. This is the guy on screen that came up with this conspiracy theory about the 2010 census data being involved in the blah, 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 blah. This is the guy. I've talked about him before. It's been like years, I think. I believe I talked about him in early August 2021 last. So let me introduce you to him if you're unfamiliar. He went on Andrew Womack's show to talk about evil Democrats, basically. Let's give this a listen.
I have evidence, and we have whistleblowers, that we also have people in America that are traitors that cooperated with this to get the ends that they wanted. So it's not just foreign actors. We've got some bad actors in our own country, and frankly, they're traitors, and they deserve traitors' treatment.
Traitors' treatment, of course, is the death penalty. So he wants anybody who he believes cheated in the election to receive the death penalty, basically. And you notice where he said it wasn't just foreign actors, blah, blah, blah. He also believes that China and Venezuela and a bunch of other countries colluded to mess with the voting machines. All complete nonsense, like beginning to end. But he started with a conclusion, and he worked backwards from there to justify that conclusion.
If you can prove this, are people going to be guilty of treason? Is there going to be jail time or
No. If he could prove that, there wouldn't be treason charges. Treason is giving aid or comfort to an enemy of the United States, basically. There would be other charges, election tampering and stuff like that, but it doesn't really matter because he can't prove any of it. He never could. He made it all up and worked backwards from there.
Repercussions for them?
Yes, there's no doubt in my mind that we have some real traitors. And I talk to a lot of veterans these days, and they're the guys who have been in the field and seen their buddies die in the field.
See, what he's doing here is inspiring a sense of nationalism and pride in their country and their servicemen and all this other stuff to try to get people emotionally invested in what he's saying. And it works.
I've been right there.
You're a vet as well.
I am.
Are you just going to roll over and let the liberty that your buddies died for just go to waste? No way. And
he's a propagandist. That's what he's really skilled at. Propaganda.
And that's what I think is happening. As people are waking up, especially our vets, they're saying, "Hey, my oath is a lifetime oath. I'm still going to serve my country." I think people are rising up, and they're not going to just be happy with, well, let's just slap that guy in the wrist. No way, that person's a traitor. And my buddies died for less than that. So I think there's going to be some pretty stiff consequences coming up.
Well, of course, the guy was completely full of it then, and he's completely full of it now. But check this out. I went and searched to figure out, how Lindell linked up with this guy in the first place. And I came across this. I think this is from late April 2021. Mike Lindell goes on this show, Flashpoint, to reveal his next big thing, what he's going to do or the route he's going to take to try to invalidate the election. It's absolutely fascinating. Check it out.
When you said none of these are going to change with Biden, I totally disagree. This is all going to end up at the Supreme Court, and they're going to vote 9-0 and pull this election down.
I didn't have to include that part in the clip, but I decided to leave it in anyways because, yeah. How long's it been now? This is, This is a year and a half later, coming up on 2 years later, and this still hasn't happened. I'm just saying. Mike Lindell, in April of 2021, believed that the Supreme Court was going to invalidate the 2020 election and put Donald Trump back in office for the remainder of the presidential term. And here we are, coming up on 2023, and it still hasn't happened. How about that?
We did a whole nother show, 2-hour show, brought in different people, and this is about the China interference that General Flynn was talking about, that attacked our country through these machines and with these algorithms. But there was a guy on the show
Okay, now he's laying out this whole conspiracy, and it sounds oddly familiar, right? It sounds like what he was talking about earlier on Jim Bakker's show. This is one of the very early appearances of this conspiracy theory that he's laying out.
These algorithms. But there was a guy on the show as we were filming. All of a sudden, he starts telling me about this 2010 census. He's a physicist. His name is Dr. Frank, and he had got involved in the Pennsylvania fraudulent election there because this congressman named Kathy Barnett, she won the night of the election, and then all of a sudden the next day she lost. He goes, "This is impossible." Well, they actually went door to door to see who people had voted and if they had voted, and they validated his algorithms that they had used the 2010 census to set the footprint in these machines.
Okay, so everything that he said was incorrect. He's assuming that they used the 2010 census as the new voter rolls. Well, I said this earlier. It's complete nonsense. It doesn't even add up. You can't do that. It doesn't have the information necessary to act as a voter roll, first of all. Second, why would 2010 census data even be in a voting machine? The original claim that he made on Jim Bakker, I believe, I may have cut this part out, but the claim that he made previously is that the 2010 census data was left over in the machines. That's nonsense. That's complete nonsense from beginning to end. So here's the thing. He's introducing Doug Frank as this new person that he just met that came up with this fantastic idea that this is how they did it. He has no proof. He has no evidence. He has no nothing. He just heard somebody say something that he enjoyed hearing, and so he's repeating it just like that. That was his introduction to this guy, Doug Frank.
And if they had voted, and they validated his algorithms that they had used the 2010 census.
He also said they went door to door to check with people and stuff. Here's where it gets interesting. Okay, so Mike Lindell meets a woman named Tina Peters. This is Tina Peters right here on the right side. She was a county clerk for Mesa County, Colorado, and she was in charge of some election stuff. So what she did was she stole private voter data and she gave it to Mike Lindell, which is extremely illegal. And that investigation, that FBI investigation into those actions that she took is what sparked the FBI to seize Mike Lindell's phone and our buddy Doug Frank, his phone too. It was into the Tina Peters investigation. Tina Peters was charged with 7 felonies recently, March 2022, and she was even arrested. You know, I've played this clip probably 6 times on this channel, but you know I'll never pass up an opportunity to play a clip of a corrupt government official getting arrested. Dude, I eat this up.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
It hurts. Let go of me.
She just kicked at him. That's resisting arrest, which she wasn't charged for, by the way.
Give me my teeth. Oh, stop it. Sorry. No, let go of me. Yes, you are, Caleb. Give me my key to my car. Give me my key to my car.
Oh, I just love it. God, I could sit here. This is like a 3-minute video. I could watch the whole thing. It's a 2-minute video. We don't have time, sadly, but oh, I love it so much. Anyway, so that was Tina Peters being arrested for committing felonies by stealing voter data, private voter data, and giving it to Mike Lindell, right? Well, Mike Lindell's been talking about his cyber guys and election experts for a while, right? Well, as it turns out, that's Doug Frank. That's Doug Frank. That is his election expert, supposed election expert. What qualifications does he have? You got me. You got me. No idea. Does he have any? Let's actually, let me see. Apparently, PolitiFact has done an analysis, a fact analysis on some of his quotes. He was quoted as saying Michigan used a mathematical key to manipulate vote totals in 2020 election. Pants on fire. Complete lie. Gotta love it. Yeah, I don't think the guy has any qualifications, but listen to what he says here. Late September 2021, he was out here talking to a crowd about the work that he's doing.
Like this morning, I was meeting with a group privately. Nobody knows who they are. We're keeping them private. Some legislators, some secretaries of state, attorney generals, county clerks. We get them, they equip us with their data. We equip them with all the knowledge they need, and then we come out together. And that is a much more powerful approach.
That is so deeply disturbing, I don't even know what to do with it. The sad part is, in reality, what was happening this whole time is he was working with legislators and governors and whoever else to steal private voter data and pass it out to various different people. Like I was saying earlier about Tina Peters and everything, Tina Peters took this private voter data, gave it to Mike Lindell, which is what she's charged for, and around the same time, mysteriously, a huge long list of dead voters leaked. It leaked from, QAnon forums and Trump forums and everything else. A big list of fake voters that were dead and weren't supposed to have cast a ballot, but here we have a bunch of dead voters, a huge list of them. Well, that's pretty damning evidence if it's real, right? So the BBC takes this list of dead voters and goes and knocks on their doors and finds out if this really is a list of dead voters. Would you be surprised to find out that it was just a list of voters, perfectly alive, real voters who actually cast ballots? Mike Lindell gets his hands, this is speculation, I don't know where that list of live voters came from, but I'm assuming Mike Lindell got his hands on that private voter data from Tina Peters, leaked the list of names of private voter data and claimed that they were actually all dead voters when they were not. That's my guess, because this is like the most high profile case of voter data being leaked. So anyways, that's just the way it seems to me. And this guy, Douglas Frank, is mixed all up in this. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. Or you can check out my Telltale Unfiltered channel. I go through long-form, unhinged sermons from all kinds of people, from Hank Kunneman to Greg Locke to Jehovah's Witnesses. So give it a look. Links are in the description. Okay, now back to the video. So Tina Peters received 7 felonies for leaking private voter data. Not too much longer after that, the FBI seizes Mike Lindell's cell phone at a Hardee's. And then a day and a half later, they seize Doug Frank's cell phone at an airport. Listen to him tell the story here.
They took Mike's phone on a Tuesday. And he was driving through a Hardee's, right? And at the time, where was I? I think I was out in the state of Washington at the time. And I'd heard about it. Everybody had told me about it. And so, yeah, I assumed they'd be coming for me next. So
why assume that? Why was that on the back of his mind? I don't see Mike Lindell get his phone seized at a Hardee's and think the FBI is coming after me. You know why? Because I have nothing to do with Mike Lindell. Because I haven't worked with Mike Lindell in any capacity to undermine any elections. Weird that he would assume that the FBI would care about getting his phone after they get Mike Lindell's, right? Isn't that weird? He knows that he was involved in some shady stuff. He knows he was guilty, and that's why he was expecting them to take his phone.
I wasn't a bit surprised when I got off the plane Wednesday night that they were waiting for me. And it's as I walked up to them, you get off the plane, you go to the potty. That's what you do. And so as I came out of the potty, there they were, 2 guys standing there waiting for me. And
wow, dude, the FBI is scary. Seriously. That means they went through airport security and stood there waiting at the bathroom for him to come out of it. That is scary. Oh my God. Do not mess with the FBI. Seriously.
I looked at them and they looked at me, and I knew it was them, and they knew that I knew that they knew that I knew that it was.
Okay, it's getting meta. Come on.
That's why they were there. So they showed me their warrant, and they took my phone, and they presented me with 2 warrants, 1 warrant and 1 subpoena. It's all related to the Colorado case, the Tina Peters situation, and I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to. Oh, just let me finish that. So no, I haven't got my phone back. But they did call me recently to ask me who was supposed to be excluded from their examination. For example, talks with attorneys are privileged, and talks with a priest are privileged, and so they're not allowed to examine that. Fat chance they're going to follow that anyway. But never.
Well, why would they even bother asking if they weren't going to follow that? Of course they are. Like this guy and the other people involved in this whole thing, like Lindell and even Trump, they are obsessed with the idea that the Justice Department is completely corrupt and they only ever do things for corrupt reasons and blah, blah, blah. You know why? Because they can use that as leverage when it comes time for the Justice Department to arrest Trump for something that he does. He's just spent the past 1.5 to 2 years vilifying the FBI and law enforcement in general and claiming that they're corrupt to the core and that this is all a political hit job and blah, blah, blah. He is preparing people mentally for this. He did the exact same thing leading up to the election. He claimed that there was all kinds of fraud and that mail-in ballots are fraudulent and fraud all over the place, because he wanted people to be primed to believe him when he said there was cheating in the election. Did the same thing in 2016. Leading up to the election, he said Hillary is going to be bussing in immigrants across the border and everything else. Complete nonsense. He won anyways, and he continued to double down on that, but he didn't even really bother that much because he won. It didn't matter. They lay out these conspiracies before they happen so that they have them to lean on when the time comes. And they can say, see, I told you they were going to arrest me for fraudulent political purposes, when in reality, this is just them being held accountable. They want to erode the credibility of the justice system and the police and the everything else so that when their time runs up and they get arrested for whatever it is that they did, they can lean on that as an excuse. This is a fascist thing. This is from the fascist playbook.
They're not allowed to examine that. Fat chance they're going to follow that anyway. But nevertheless, I'm supposed to tell them now who they're not supposed to follow up. It was so ironic, I got to tell you, Emerald. So I'm standing there talking to these two FBI agents, and the guy says, we're going to take it back to the shop, and we're going to run a forensic image of it and then give it back to you. And I thought, speaking of forensic images, that's why I'm in this whole and it was so beautiful. The irony was really steep. Now, these guys, they're just field agents. They don't know anything about the Colorado case. So I took the opportunity to say, speaking of forensic images, guess what? That's what this is about. And it's about Tina Peters, who had forensic images made of her machines perfectly legally. In fact,
like they give it. Like, why is he even sitting here telling them this? Who cares, first of all? And second, that's not actually necessarily true. Take this with a grain of salt. I don't know that what he's describing here is true. Tina Peters taking a forensic image and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure that I don't know how she got the voter data. Maybe it was her making an image of the voting machine or something. I don't know. But whatever it was, it ended up with her having voter data in her pocket and passing it to Mike Lindell. That's what this is all over.
Legally, in fact, she has the authority to do so, and
I don't know that that's true either. She's just a county clerk. She's not like some big, she's not the Secretary of State. She did run for Secretary of State and lost. That's neither here nor there. I don't know that she's even allowed to do that.
So, and the Secretary of State had even suggested that, or advised all the clerks to take backups, and she just did a really thorough backup. And it
just did a really thorough backup, i.e., she took data that was not hers to take, is what I'm reading from what he's saying here, right?
Turns out that the backups she made have had national implications because they expose how the machines are manipulated.
No, actually, it had national implications because she stole data she was not supposed to have and leaked it to a partisan nutcase who obviously has some kind of a mental situation going on. Honestly sad that this is all playing out this way. Honestly sad that we have to push for accountability for these people in the first place. But we can at least be glad that there seems to be a case moving forward right now. We can be glad that Lindell had his phone seized in the Tina Peters case. We can be glad that Tina Peters was so unsanctimoniously arrested recently. And we can be glad that old Doug Frank had his phone seized too. I want accountability. And it feels like this is one more step on the road to that. So this is good news. It's a time to celebrate. To find out that Lindell's supposed election expert, quote unquote, had his phone seized too. They're following up and they're following leads and trying to figure things out. So with that, let me know what you think of this in the comments or on Twitter at TelltaleAtheist. And I will leave you with this short snippet of Tina Peters being arrested to play us out.
Give me my key to my car. Give me my key to my car. Give it to me. Give me my key. Step outside. Take my purse.
Emily Sigmund, this woman is so entitled that she thinks yelling at cops will stop them from arresting her. I know. What was she thinking? Seriously, did she really think that that was going to work out in her favor? Calling them by their first name and stuff and then kicking at them? She kicked at them and she thought that was going to solve her problems. Really. This woman stole private voter data and leaked it to Mike Lindell. She does not deserve she did not deserve the kindness that the cops gave to her by not giving her an extra resisting arrest charge. She didn't deserve it at all. But we live in that type of society, seems to me. Two-tier justice system.